close your eyes and step back in time. The year is somewhere in the late 9th century. The world you know disappears, and in its place, a harsh, untamed landscape stretches out before you. You find yourself on the rocky coastline of Scandinavia. The air is sharp and briny, filled with the cries of seabirds circling overhead. The smell of salt and tar clings to everything. The smell of the sea, the smell of ships, the smell of men preparing to leave the safety of land behind. The morning sun glimmers faintly, weak and pale, unable to chase away the mist that rolls low over the water. Before you, resting on the shoreline, is a longship. It is unlike any vessel you have seen before, sleek, narrow, its prow carved into the head of a dragon, its body built from overlapping planks of oak that creak and groan as the tide rocks it gently against the sand. Tar has been smeared along its seams to keep the water out, and the smell of it mixes with damp wood and seaweed. Around the ship, men gather. They are broad-shouldered, thick-bearded, their hair tangled by wind and sea. Their clothes are of wool and leather, heavy and practical, but already damp with the morning spray. Some carry shields painted in bold colors. Others grip long oars polished smooth by years of use. Their voices rise and fall in harsh bursts of Old Norse, barking commands, prayers, curses. You are among them now, a stranger in this world, standing barefoot on the cold, wet sand. Your feet sink into the earth with every step, and the icy water nips at your ankles. There is no turning back. Someone pushes you forward, and you climb aboard. The deck of the ship is not what you expect. There are no cabins, no shelter, no comfort. Just rough planks of wood, damp with mist and sticky with pitch. The space is narrow, the bench is hard. You sit pressed against the shoulder of another man, close enough to feel the heat of his body, yet the wind immediately steals that warmth away. The ship rocks gently, but even now, you feel it. How unstable, how fragile it is compared to the vast ocean that lies beyond the horizon. Your stomach lurches as the keel shifts, and already you understand. This is no place for comfort. This is no place for the soft. The sail above is still furled, tied tightly against the mast. For now, oars will drive the ship. You look around, and you see them. Dozens of men, each gripping and are longer than a man is tall. It's what's slick with use. Their hands are scarred and blistered, their knuckles swollen and raw. A voice calls out, harsh, commanding. The shipmaster. He stands at the stern, where a single steering oar juts into the sea like a giant's arm. His eyes scan the crew with the cold certainty of a man who has crossed these waters before. He knows what awaits you all: hunger, exhaustion, storms, and death. But he says nothing of that now. Instead, he orders the oars into the sea, and with a heavy splash, they dip into the water together. The longship begins to move. The sound is immediate, overwhelming. The rhythmic slap of oars against the waves, the groan of wood straining under pressure, the rush of water splitting around the hull. It drowns out every other thought in your mind. And as the coastline begins to fade behind you, the realization settles like a stone in your gut. You are leaving the safety of land. You are at the mercy of the sea, and you are now a Viking sailor. The longship is not just a vessel. It is a weapon, a symbol, a home, and now it is your prison. As the oars bite into the water and the ship pushes further from the coast, you have time to truly see what surrounds you. The longship is built for speed and terror, not for comfort. At little more than 70 feet in length, it is long and narrow, with barely enough space for the dozens of men it carries. Every inch of wood has been hewn by axe, smoothed by hand, and fastened with iron nails hammered into place. The craftsmanship is undeniable, but it was never meant to coddle its crew. The benches where you sit are nothing more than planks balanced across the ribs of the ship. Each man's oar is his lifeline, his burden, and his punishment. The planks beneath you are damp, always damp, as if the sea itself has claimed ownership of this vessel and refuses to let it remain dry. Water seeps up between the boards, pooling at your feet. There's no place to stretch your legs, no place to lie down. When you do sleep, it will be here, hunched shoulder to shoulder with the others, your body pressed against cold wood. Above, the mast towers high, carrying with it a single great sail of wool, dyed in stripes of red and white. When the wind favors you, that sail will carry the ship faster than any oars ever could. But when the wind dies, as it so often does, the burden falls back upon the rowers. The oar is your companion. It will blister your hands, swell your joints, and carve deep grooves into your flesh. And if you fail to keep pace, if your stroke falls behind, the ship will slow and the crew will notice. Weakness is not forgiven here. Look closer, and you see the details that tell their own story. The dragon head at the prow, carved from oak, its teeth bared in a snarl. It is not only decoration. It is a warning, a declaration of power. Villages along foreign shores will see it cutting through the mist and know that death has come for them. But for you, the dragon offers no protection. It cannot shield you from the sea or from the men who share this deck. There is no below deck, no hidden storage or safe hold. Everything is here in the open. Food is stored in wooden barrels, lashed to the floor so they will not roll into the sea. Water, already beginning to taste of rot, sloshes in its containers. Weapons are tucked beneath benches. Axes, spears, shields, all within reach, for raids could begin at any moment. The ship is a floating war camp, and every man aboard is both sailor and soldier. The smell is already overwhelming. Salt and tar, sweat and wool. The reek of fish, the stench of men who have not bathed in weeks, perhaps months. The Longship has no privacy, no reprieve. Every cough, every groan, every muttered curse is heard by all. And at night, when exhaustion overtakes the crew, you will sleep amid this stench with no escape from it. As the hours pass, the rhythm of the oars takes hold. The ship glides forward, the prow cutting smoothly through the water. But even as you watch, you feel the ship twist and flex beneath your feet. The Longship is built to bend with the waves, not resist them. This is what allows it to ride the seas so swiftly, but it means that every crash of water shakes the planks beneath you, rattles the nails, and makes you wonder how something so fragile can carry so many lives into the unknown. The men around you seem unfazed. To them, this is nothing new. They lean into their oars with practiced ease, their muscles moving in rhythm, their eyes fixed forward. You try to mimic their strokes, but already your arms ache. The weight of the oar is crushing, the repetition endless. Every pull leaves your hands burning. Every dip of the blade into the sea drains your strength. And yet, no one slows. No one falters. You glance toward the stern, where the helmsman stands with the great steering oar. His eyes are locked on the horizon, watching for reefs, for sandbars, for the treacherous shallows that could dash the ship to pieces. His face is weathered, his beard flecked with salt, his expression carved from stone. He does not speak, but he does not need to. His very presence is enough to remind you. Here, the sea is master, and he, perhaps, is its interpreter. The coastline behind you fades further and further, until it is nothing but a smudge of gray against the horizon. Land is gone, only water remains. And in that moment, you begin to understand the truth. The Longship is magnificent, yes. It is a marvel of its age, feared across continents. But for you, it is also a cage that will carry you into hunger, into storms, into exhaustion and despair. There is no escape now. You are bound to it as surely as if you were shackled to its deck. The Longship is your world, and it will break you. The sea does not wait for you to grow accustomed to it. It shows its cruelty from the very beginning. At first, the waters are calm. The Longship glides forward, the oars rising and falling in perfect rhythm, cutting a steady path through the waves. The mist clings low, curling like smoke across the surface. For a brief moment, you almost believe this journey will be manageable. Perhaps you think the fears were exaggerated. Perhaps the sea is not so terrifying after all. And then the wind shifts. It begins as a whisper, stirring the sail high above your head. The fabric trembles, then fills, snapping taut with a deep, guttural sound. The ship lurches forward, faster now, its prow slicing through the water like a knife. The oars lift clear, men pull them inboard, and for a fleeting moment, you feel the thrill of speed, the rush of the sea carrying you. But with the wind comes the waves. They rise slowly at first, swelling beneath the hull, lifting the Longship higher than you thought possible. The horizon tilts and shifts. The planks beneath your feet groan as the ship rides the swell, then drops with a heavy crash into the trough below. Cold spray erupts over the deck, drenching you instantly. Your cloak, your tunic, your very skin are soaked through, and the chill bites into your bones. There is no shelter, no cabin to crawl beneath, no sailcloth to pull over your head. The Longship is open, exposed to every cruelty the sea chooses to deliver. Rain begins to fall, mingling with the salt spray, dripping into your eyes, your mouth, your hair. You taste brine with every breath. The men around you do not flinch. Their faces are hard, set against the storm. To them, this is ordinary. They have endured this countless times before. They know that to fear the sea is to give it power. But you, your stomach twists, your legs tremble, and your mind cannot escape the thought that one great wave, one towering wall of water, could rise up and swallow the entire ship in a heartbeat. And those waves do come. They rise like mountains, black against the gray sky. You feel the ship climb, higher, higher, until the sea below looks like a valley of foam and shadow. At the crest, there's a moment of silence, weightless, suspended, and then the Longship plunges downward, crashing into the trough with a force that rattles your teeth and knocks the breath from your lungs. Water surges over the sides, flooding the deck, drenching every man aboard. The helmsman grips the steering oar with both hands, his muscles straining, his jaw clenched. One mistake, one slip, and the ship will turn broadside to the waves. If that happens, the sea will flip it as easily as a child tips over a toy. You cling to the bench beneath you, your fingers raw against the wood, praying silently that the man's strength holds. Lightning splits the sky, jagged and blinding. For an instant, the entire world is white, sea, sail, and sky merging into one violent flash. Thunder follows, rolling like the voice of a god across the waves. Some of the men shout prayers to Thor, protector of sailors, begging him to guide the ship through the storm. Others mutter to themselves, gripping charms or amulets tucked beneath their cloaks. You realize then that even these hardened warriors, men who laugh at death in battle, fear the sea. The cold becomes unbearable. Your clothes cling like icy chains. Your skin burns from the wind. Your lips crack and bleed from the salt. You shiver so violently that your teeth clatter like stones. But there is no warmth to be found. No fire, no blanket, no escape. You are trapped on this strip of wood, adrift on an endless ocean, beneath a sky that seems intent on destroying you. Hours pass, or perhaps only minutes. Time loses all meaning amid the chaos of storm and sea. Your body aches, your mind dulls, and you begin to understand why so many Viking sailors were lost to the waves. It is not always because their ships broke apart. Sometimes it is because the men themselves broke first, exhausted, frozen, too weak to cling on when the sea demanded their lives. And then, as suddenly as it began, the storm begins to fade. The waves calm, though they still heave and roll beneath the ship. The rain thins, then stops. The sail, once straining and snapping, droops gently as the wind weakens. The sky lightens, pale streaks breaking through the heavy cloud. You feel no relief, only emptiness, only exhaustion. Your body is drained, your spirit battered. And this was only a single storm, one among many that await you. The sea has shown you its teeth, and it will not be the last time. The sea has calmed, but a new enemy begins to gnaw at you. Not the waves, not the cold wind, not even the storms. This enemy is smaller, quieter, and it never leaves your side. Hunger. At first, you hardly notice it. After all, when you boarded the Longship, you saw the barrels and sacks stowed between the benches. Food, you thought. Provisions enough for weeks. But the sea plays tricks, and time at sea is different than time on land. Days blur together. Meals are few and meager. And before long, your stomach begins to protest. The food of a Viking sailor is not what you imagine. There are no fresh loaves of bread, no roasted meats, no warm stews. Those luxuries belong to land, to hearth, to home. At sea, you eat what survives the journey, and survival is the only goal. The first rations are tolerable. Dried fish, salted herring, hard bread baked until it is closer to stone than food. The bread is so tough you must soak it in water or ale before you can chew it. Sometimes there is dried meat, tough and stringy, pulled from storage barrels. Every bite tastes of salt, of smoke, of age. Nothing is fresh. Nothing is satisfying. But as the days stretch into weeks, even these rations begin to spoil. The bread grows moldy. Worms wriggle through it. The dried fish begins to stink, its flesh turning soft and rancid. The barrels of ale sour, the water grows foul. You lift your cup, desperate for a drink, only to taste decay as though you were drinking from a stagnant pond. And yet, you drink, because the body needs water no matter how vile it has become. Your stomach churns. Some men vomit over the side, seasick from the constant rocking of the ship. Others retch from the spoiled food. The deck becomes slippery with bile, the air heavy with the stench of sickness. But still you eat. Still you drink. Because there is no other choice. Hunger becomes a companion. It gnaws at your belly, sharp at first, then dull and constant like a fire that never goes out. You wake with it, you row with it, you sleep with it. It is always there. Your body grows weaker, your arms thinner, your eyes sunken. Even the strongest men aboard are not spared. Everyone suffers, everyone endures. There is no relief. The sea offers fish, yes, but catching them is another ordeal. A hook tied to a line, baited with scraps, tossed into the vast waters. Sometimes a silver flash is pulled aboard, and for one brief moment, hope stirs. A fresh fish, raw but edible, is shared in small pieces swallowed quickly, bones and all. But more often, the line comes up empty. The sea does not feed willingly. And so, the men tell stories to distract themselves from the ache. Around you, sailors speak of great feasts awaiting them when they return home. Platters of roasted pork, butter melting on fresh bread, steaming bowls of broth. Their voices grow soft, their eyes distant, as though they can taste it already. For a few moments, the hunger eases. But then reality returns, and you are left with nothing but hard bread and sour ale. The thirst is worse. When the barrels run low, the crew must ration carefully. A mouthful here, a sip there. Your lips crack, your throat burns, and still the water is withheld until it can be shared fairly among all. You begin to notice the dryness of your tongue, the way it sticks to your teeth, the way your thoughts circle endlessly around the idea of a single cool drink. Some men dip cups directly into the sea, desperate to quench their thirst. But seawater is a curse. It burns your throat, it bloats your stomach, and soon it drives you to sickness, even madness. The older sailors know this. They slap the hands of anyone foolish enough to try, dragging the cup away, cursing them for their weakness. Better to suffer the dry mouth, the swollen tongue, than to surrender to salt water. And then there is the danger of storms. When rain comes, the men lift their cloaks, their helmets, even their hands to the sky, catching every drop they can. Rainwater is precious, more precious than gold. You drink it greedily, letting it run down your cheeks, into your mouth, onto your tongue. For that brief, blessed moment, the thirst eases. But the storm passes, and the barrels grow light again, and once more the ache returns. Your body changes. Your strength falters. The muscles you once relied on for rowing begin to weaken. Your vision blurs. Even your mind begins to wander. Hunger and thirst strip you down, piece by piece, until all that remains is endurance. And yet the voyage goes on. The ship does not stop because your belly is empty. The oars do not rest because your throat is dry. You must row, you must endure, you must survive. For the sea has no pity. It does not care if you're starving. It does not care if you are dying of thirst. The sea only takes, and you're beginning to realize that soon it might take you too. The sea does not allow idleness. On land, you can rest. You can sit beneath a tree, close your eyes, and let your body recover. But here, on the Longship, the sea demands constant labor. The oar is your life now. It waits for you in silence, a heavy length of wood nearly twice your height, polished smooth not from care, but from the endless grip of countless men before you. It is more than just a tool. It is a burden, a test, a punishment. And once you take hold of it, you will never truly let it go. At first, the rowing seems almost rhythmic. The shipmaster calls out, his voice sharp as steel, and the oars dip together in unison. Water splashes, wood groans, and the ship glides forward. The first few strokes feel manageable. You begin to think that perhaps you can endure this. But the sea is wide, wider than you imagined, wider than your body can withstand. Hour after hour, stroke after stroke, the weight of the oar grows heavier. Your shoulders burn, your arms tremble, your hands blister and tear until blood stains the smooth wood. Salt water creeps into the cuts, stinging like fire. Every muscle in your body screams for rest, but rest never comes. When the wind fills the sail, there is relief for a time. The oars are pulled in, the men slump against the benches, panting, their chests heaving. You savor these moments, praying for them to last. But the wind is fickle. It dies as suddenly as it comes. And when it does, the order is shouted again, row. And so you lift the oar once more. There is no escape from the rhythm. Forward, pull, lift, return. Again and again and again. The sea does not forgive a misstep. If one man falters, if one stroke lags, the ship slows, the line breaks, and the wrath of the shipmaster descends. You have seen it already. A man too exhausted to keep pace, his or dragging uselessly. He was struck, cursed, his shame visible to all. Weakness is not tolerated. Weakness is death. The nights bring no relief. Sleep is stolen in moments, never in hours. You collapse where you sit, your head drooping forward, only to be jolted awake by a command or by the sudden lurch of the ship. The benches are hard, the air freezing, and the roar of the sea never ceases. Your dreams are shallow, broken by the endless rhythm that has embedded itself in your bones. Even in sleep, you row. The body begins to betray you. Blisters harden into calluses. Muscles ache with a deep, constant throb that never truly fades. Your back twists and knots. Your legs cramp from being bent in the same position for too long. Every morning you wake weaker, yet every morning you must row again. The men around you endure it with grim acceptance. Their faces are blank, their eyes hollow. They row not because they wish to, but because it is all they know. You realize that for them, this is life. For you, it is torment. And then comes the worst of it, the endlessness. On land, labor has an end. A field can be plowed, a wall can be built, a harvest can be gathered. But here, at sea, the labor stretches into infinity. The horizon never changes. The waves never cease. The rowing never ends. There is no task to complete, no finish to reach, only the constant demand to keep moving forward. Sometimes the silence is broken by songs. The Vikings row to chants, to the rhythm of voices rising and falling like the sea itself. A deep, guttural chorus that carries over the waves. For a time, it lifts the spirits, binds the men together. But soon, even the songs fade into groans, into labored breathing, into silence once more. The monotony becomes a torture of its own. Each stroke is the same, yet each one steals a little more of your strength, a little more of your will. The mind begins to wander. You think of land, of trees, of grass beneath your feet. You imagine lying on solid earth, free from this swaying, groaning cage. But the vision fades, and still you row. And always there is fear, not of the shipmaster, not of the men around you, but of the knowledge that if you stop, if you falter, the sea will not carry you. The ship will stall, the voyage will fail, and you will be cast out as weak, unworthy, useless. Better to die at the oar than to live in shame. So you row. You row until your arms are numb, until your chest feels as though it will burst, until your very soul aches from the endless, merciless rhythm. And as you row, you begin to understand the truth. It is not the storm that breaks a sailor. It is not hunger, nor thirst, nor even the fear of drowning. It is this, the endless labor, the knowledge that there is no end, no relief, no escape. Only the oar, only the sea, only the unending demand to endure. The sea is not kind to the body. It wears you down slowly, piece by piece, until you begin to feel less like a man and more like a husk, a hollow frame carried only by stubbornness. Out here, far from land, far from healers and herbs, even the smallest wound can become a death sentence. It begins with the hands. You already know the blisters from the oar, raw and weeping. They never heal. Each day, they open again, rubbed against wood and salt. The sting becomes so constant that you almost stop noticing it, until infection creeps in. The skin swells, reddens, and a foul heat burns beneath it. There are no bandages, no soothing balms, only dirty rags and the salt air. Sometimes men dip their hands into seawater, believing it cleans the wound. More often, it only makes things worse. Then come the rope burns. Hauling sails, tightening lines, securing the mast. All of it is done with bare hands, rough hemp cutting deep into the flesh. A slip, a sudden pull, and skin tears open. The ropes do not forgive clumsiness. And once again, the sea punishes. Salt in the cut, grit worked in with every movement, pain that lingers long into the night. The feet are no better. Always damp. Pressed against the planks of the ship, they soften and rot. Toes crack, nails blacken, skin peels away in ragged strips. Men limp, unable to balance as they row, their misery hidden behind clenched teeth. There's no chance to dry them, no chance to recover. The dampness is eternal. But it is not only wounds that stalk you. Illness rides the waves as surely as the ship itself. The food, already foul, carries sickness within it. Mold spreads on bread, worms squirm inside dried meat. Water barrels sour into foul, slimy liquid. Some drink despite the taste, desperate to quench their thirst. Days later, their bellies cramp, their bodies convulse, and they grow weaker and weaker until they can no longer lift an oar. And then there is scurvy, the sailor's curse. You do not know its name, but you feel its claws. Gums bleed, teeth loosen, bruises bloom across skin from the lightest touch. Joints swell, legs ache, and exhaustion crushes you with a weight heavier than stone. You try to stand and feel your body refuse. You try to chew and find blood filling your mouth. There are no fresh fruits, no green leaves, no cure. Only decay, slow and merciless. Fever comes often, perhaps from spoiled food, perhaps from unseen rot within wounds. The body grows hot, shivering and sweating, yet the cold sea air offers no comfort. Men mumble nonsense in their delirium, their eyes glassy, their breath shallow. Some recover, weak and broken. Others simply waste away, fading like mist until one morning they do not rise. There is no healer here, no priest with prayers, no woman with herbs, no shelter of walls or beds. The crew does what it can, wrapping rags, muttering charms, pouring sour ale down parched throats. But most of all they wait, for the fever to break, or for death to come. When a man dies, the sea becomes his grave. There is no time to mourn. His body, wrapped in what little cloth can be spared, is lifted and cast into the water. The waves swallow him. The gulls wheel overhead, and soon there is no sign he ever existed. Only the empty space where he once sat, and or that now waits for another hand. And even if you yourself are not sick, the fear of it haunts you. Every cough makes you flinch. Every groan in the night makes you wonder if sickness is coming for you next. There's no escaping it. You live shoulder to shoulder with the ill, breathing the same air, touching the same ropes, drinking from the same barrel. If one man falls, others soon follow. Yet the Vikings endure. They must. Their gods are not merciful. and their world is not forgiving. Pain is not an excuse, but a test. To complain is to show weakness. To falter is to risk shame. Better to bleed silently, to suffer without a word, than to be cast as the burden of the crew. So you hide it. You hide the fever that burns in your veins, the swelling in your gums, the ache in your chest. You grip the oar and row, even as your body begs you to stop. Because out here, illness does not bring sympathy. It brings only two choices: endure or be left behind. And as the days drag on, you begin to understand something cruel. It is not the storm that will kill you, not the enemy's sword, not the endless sea. It is the small things, the blister that festers, the bread that rots, the cough that will not stop, tiny miseries that grow and grow until they consume you. This is how the sea destroys men, not in sudden fury, but in slow, creeping decay. The sea stretches endlessly, a gray expanse without borders, without mercy. Day after day, the horizon is the same, a thin, shifting line between water and sky, offering no promise of what lies beyond. You row, you sail, you drift, and always it is there, mocking you with its emptiness. At first, you tell yourself there must be land ahead. Surely, the world cannot be only water. Surely, Odin has not made it so. But as the days turn to weeks, doubt seeps in like water through a crack in the hull. You stare into the horizon and see nothing. You sleep, you wake, and still it is the same. An endless plain of waves. The sea is alive in ways you do not understand. Some days it is calm, flat as a sheet of hammered iron. Other days it heaves and groans, lifting the Longship high before dropping into deep, hollow troughs that make your stomach churn. You never know what awaits. There are no signs, no warnings, no way to predict. You are small, fragile, at the mercy of something far larger than yourself. And then there are the things you cannot name. Strange lights flicker across the sky at night, dancing green and red and violet. The northern lights, a mystery even to those who have seen them many times. Are they the fires of the gods? Are they spirits of the dead? The men whisper, their voices hushed, each man afraid to speak too loudly, as though the sky itself might hear. Fog comes without warning, thick and heavy, smothering sound and sight. You cannot see the prow of the ship, cannot see the man beside you. The world shrinks to the creak of wood and the slap of water against the hull. In that silence, your mind plays tricks. Every splash becomes a monster. Every shadow becomes a threat. The sea holds secrets, and in the fog, it feels as though they are closing in around you. And beneath you, always beneath you, there is the black water, deep, unfathomable. You imagine what lies below, great serpents coiled in the dark, waiting for a ship to stray, kraken with arms like trees, ready to drag men screaming into the depths. Even if you do not believe, the thought lingers. You hear something splash in the distance, and your skin prickles. You feel something brush against the keel, and your heart leaps. Out here, in the vast emptiness, who can say what lives in the deep? Nights are the worst. The stars above guide you, but they also remind you how far you are from land. Each star is a cold fire, burning in a silence so profound it chills your bones. The sea beneath you is a mirror, black and endless. The ship creaks, the men shift, and still you feel the weight of the unknown pressing in. If you were to fall overboard, the water would swallow you whole. No one would see. No one could save you. You would sink, and the sea would keep you forever. Fear is constant, though few speak of it. Men hide it behind laughter, behind boasts, behind whispered prayers. They talk of gold, of land, of glory, as though such words can banish the dread. But in their eyes, in the way they grip their oars, in the way they stare too long at the horizon, you see it. They are afraid. All of them. And sometimes, fear is not born from monsters or storms, but from silence. Days with no wind. The sail limp, the ship drifting. Food dwindling, water spoiling, men growing restless. Every hour stretches long, and every thought turns dark. What if you're lost? What if you never find land? What if this voyage ends not with discovery, but with the sea claiming every last soul aboard? The unknown is vast. It offers hope of riches, yes, but it also whispers of ruin. And in the long, endless nights, when sleep will not come and your body aches from rowing, the unknown becomes a weight too heavy to bear. Yet still you press on, because to turn back is shame. To surrender to fear is death of another kind. Better to face the sea, to meet the unknown, than to return empty-handed. And so, even as dread coils in your chest, even as every wave looks like a hand reaching to pull you under, you row. You grip the oar with blister hands. You stare into the horizon, into that endless nothingness, and you force yourself to believe that something, land, treasure, glory, waits ahead. Because if you do not believe, the sea will break you, and no man returns from a voyage broken. The Longship is not just a vessel, and the sea not just a place. It is a home that offers no comfort, no privacy, and no mercy. You sit shoulder to shoulder with men you barely know. Their faces are worn, lined with wind and salt. Some are young, barely grown, with hope still clinging to their eyes. Others are old, beards streaked with gray, eyes hollow with the memory of voyages long past. And yet, all are bound together by the same invisible chain, survival. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, sweat, tar, and fish. You can taste it as you breathe. Your own body smells the same. You have no way to escape it. Every cough, every groan, every whispered curse is amplified in the close quarters. There is nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to run. Every man's misery is everyone else's. And yet, camaraderie blooms in the strangest places. Men share their rations when another is hungry. A hand on the shoulder, a whispered joke, a short story about home. They sing to keep rhythm, chanting songs of gods and heroes, of battles won and lost, of lands far away. For a moment, you feel almost human again, almost safe. But there is also cruelty. The Longship has little patience for weakness. A man too slow with his, or a man who falters in strength, is subject to scorn, sometimes even a lash of a whip. Discipline is harsh. Complaints are punished. Weakness is contagious, and the crew cannot risk it spreading. To survive together, you must all endure, and endure perfectly. Rivalries grow easily. Eyes glare over food, over oars, over tasks assigned. Fights break out, sometimes settled with words, sometimes with fists, and occasionally with weapons. The captain's voice cuts through like steel to stop a dispute, but tension never truly disappears. In these confined spaces, every man's personality is magnified. Every flaw, every fear, every ambition becomes visible to all. Yet, the men rely on each other as much as the ship itself. Each oar stroke requires trust. Each maneuver demands cooperation. If one man fails, all fail. The ship moves not by individual effort, but by collective strength, and this dependence creates bonds stronger than anything you have known on land. You feel it, though it frightens you. The men around you, despite their brutality and harshness, are all you have between life and death. Meals, when they come, are communal. Barrels are opened and food divided, small portions passed hand to hand. You eat quickly, lest someone take more than their share. Conversations are brief but important, plans discussed quietly between rowers and helmsmen. You learn each man's habits, his strengths, his weaknesses, because to know your fellow sailor is to survive another day. At night, when sleep is finally possible, the benches are a crowded tangle of bodies. Arms draped over shoulders, heads resting on knees, men snoring through the cold and damp. Privacy does not exist. Dreams are shared in whispers, often stories of home. Wives, children, farms, the smell of firewood burning in a hearth. But the night is always interrupted by the creak of the hull, the slap of waves, the warning shout of a sudden change in weather. Superstition and belief are constant companions. Amulets are passed around. Old sailors whisper prayers to Thor and Odin. A painted rune on the prow promises protection. Even the bravest men will glance nervously at shadows, at shapes in the fog, at the way gulls circle above. There is a shared understanding. Survival is as much about respect for the unseen as it is about strength of arm. And through it all, life aboard the Longship continues. Each day blends into the next. Hunger, thirst, labor, fear, camaraderie, cruelty, they're inseparable, all part of existence on these waters. For a week, for a month, for years, men endure this life. And through endurance, they find a strange kind of purpose, a sense of being part of something larger than themselves. A journey not just across the sea, but across fate itself. You begin to understand the paradox of this life. It is unbearable, yet necessary. Brutal, yet beautiful. Harsh, yet binding. Out here, you are stripped of everything but the essentials: body, mind, and the men beside you. And if you survive, if you endure, you will emerge changed, stronger, sharper, forever tied to the memory of those endless waves and the crew that kept you alive. The Vikings are not merely men. They are people defined by the sea, by battle, and by the gods they serve. To survive aboard the Longship is not only to endure hunger, exhaustion, and fear. It is to carry within you the spirit of a culture that thrives on challenge, risk, and the unknown. Every man aboard carries tales of gods and heroes. The names of Odin, Thor, Freya, and Loki are whispered in prayer and curse alike. They're not abstract figures. They are real, present, tangible. The men speak to them before storms, before battle, before raids. They make offerings of small trinkets or coins, left tucked into the folds of sailcloth or tied to the mast. Even in the darkest hour, a sailor's faith is a lifeline, a fragile hope against the endless trials of the sea. Superstition is woven into every action. A black cat seen at dawn may signal doom. The way a gull cries could foretell wind or storm. Shapes in the clouds might guide your path or warn you of danger. The men interpret these omens with reverence and fear. They do not question the signs. To question them is to invite misfortune. And out here, with nothing but sea and sky, belief becomes survival. The spirit of the Vikings is not just in superstition. It is in courage, in the willingness to face death daily, whether in battle or beneath the storm-tossed waves. Each oar stroke, each pull of a sail, each step across the slippery deck is an act of defiance against nature itself. To falter is shame. To endure is honor. Stories of past voyages echo across the decks. Tales of distant lands, of conquests, of treasures carried home to feasts and celebrations. The men retell these stories often, embellishing them, passing them down, keeping their culture alive even in the isolation of the ocean. It is as if the stories themselves carry strength, reminding the men who they are, reminding them that even here, far from home, they belong to something greater than themselves. Even death is embraced differently among Vikings. To die at sea or in battle is not a loss, it is an honor. The men speak quietly of Valhalla, the great hall where brave souls are welcomed by Odin himself. This belief steels them against despair. When waves lash the deck or blisters burn their hands raw, they remind themselves, death is not the end. It is the next step, and one taken with courage will lead to glory. Rituals mark the passage of days. Before meals, a short prayer, a murmur of thanks. Before raids, a blessing upon weapons. Even laughter, crude as it may be, carries a sacred weight, a reminder that life, however harsh, is to be lived fully. Every glance at the dragon-headed prow reminds them. They are conquerors, voyagers, chosen to traverse worlds unknown. And in this harsh environment, the Viking spirit manifests most clearly in endurance, in unity, in defiance. It is seen in the man who rose despite cramps and fever. It is heard in the songs sung to keep rhythm and morale. It is felt in the silent understanding between two men sharing a ration or catching a glimpse of land after weeks at sea. It is not born of comfort or ease. It is forged in fire, in storm, in hunger, in fear, and in relentless challenge. You feel it too, even as a newcomer, even as a man shaken by storms, cold, and fatigue. You cannot help but sense the force of it. There's a pride here, not boastful or loud, but quiet and unyielding. You row harder, breathe deeper, hold yourself straighter. For in this moment, you're no longer just a man lost at sea. You are part of something older, something enduring, something unstoppable. And so, you row on. The wind fills the sail. The oars cut through the water. The waves crash and recede. And in the heart of every man aboard, there burns the same fire, the unbroken, unyielding Viking spirit. And now, after weeks aboard the Longship, after storms and hunger, after fear and toil, the journey nears its end. The waves have become familiar companions. The oars, though still heavy, feel like extensions of your own body. The men around you are no longer strangers, but brothers bound by shared suffering, shared endurance, and shared triumphs. You glance at the horizon. Land appears, not as a distant dream, but as a reality slowly rising from a mist. Your heart lifts, even as exhaustion clings to your limbs. You have endured the sea, the storms, the hunger, the pain, the fear, and you have survived. It is easy to forget when we sit on soft chairs or walk along paved streets how difficult life once was. How simple comforts we take for granted. Warm food, clean water, a soft bed, fresh air were once luxuries beyond imagination. For the Vikings, for those who lived and died on the sea, survival demanded everything. Strength, courage, endurance, faith. Every day was a battle, every hour a test, every breath a victory. And yet, even amid hardship, there was beauty. The first light of dawn spilling across endless waves, turning the water to gold. The quiet moments when the wind died and the sea reflected the sky, so calm it seemed unreal. The bonds formed between men, in shared toil and mutual reliance, stronger than any fortress wall. The thrill of discovery, of approaching lands unseen by your eyes, of knowing that your journey would be remembered in story and song. We forget that the past is not merely a collection of dates and battles. It is lived experience, pain, hope, courage, despair, and triumph. And to understand it, we must imagine ourselves there, aboard the Longship, in the freezing mist, rowing with blistered hands, tasting brine on every breath, staring into the unknown with a mixture of terror and resolve. Only then can we grasp what it meant to be a Viking. Consider the courage it took to step onto that deck, to leave the shore behind, to place life entirely in the hands of the gods and the whims of the sea. Consider the hunger that never ceased, the wounds that never healed, the storms that could end everything in an instant. Consider the spirit that refused to break despite it all. We live in a world of comfort now, where the sea is crossed in days instead of weeks, where ships have cabins, warmth, and plentiful food. Yet, the essence of that journey remains timeless. The human capacity to endure, to risk, to seek the unknown, and to bond with others through shared hardship. The Viking Longship sails not just across water, but across time. It carries with it a lesson. That life is forged in the crucible of challenge. That survival is only possible when courage meets perseverance. That the bonds of shared struggle are some of the strongest that exist. As the coastline grows nearer, as land once again promises warmth, food, and safety, take a moment to reflect. Close your eyes, as we did the journey start, and imagine the sound of oars cutting through the waves, the creak of the hull, the salt in the air, the wind biting your skin. Imagine the fear, the exhaustion, the camaraderie, and the unbroken spirit that carried these men across seas unknown. This is the story of the Vikings, not just warriors, not just raiders, but sailors, voyagers, and survivors. And though the centuries have passed, though the longships have vanished from the waves, their spirit remains. a spirit of courage, endurance, and the relentless pursuit of the unknown. And now, as the ship makes its final approach to land, as the oars are finally lifted from the water and the men prepare to step onto solid ground, we leave them there. We leave them with the memory of the waves behind, the horizon ahead, and the fire within. So, let's step back into our own time, into our own comfort, carrying with us the echoes of that journey. Remember the Longship, the storms, the hunger, the camaraderie, and the unyielding Viking spirit. Remember that history is not only to be studied, it is to be felt, imagined, and lived, even for a brief moment, in our minds and hearts. And with that, we bid farewell to the Longship, to the men, to the sea, and to a world that was as harsh as it was magnificent. The journey ends, but the story, like the waves, lives on.